Today we are going to compare all 4 CRISPR companies, including CRISPR Therapeutics, Editas Medicine, Intellia Therapeutics and Beam Therapeutics. We will look into their financials, in their pipeline, their competitors. Also we'll mention some catalysts that are upcoming during this year later on. And then I will try to estimate, at least in my opinion, when we can expect these drugs to be on the market. And at the end of the video, I will give you my opinion about each of these companies. So just sit back and relax, because I feel like it may be a long video. Hello, my name is Murat, I'm a PhD student in medicinal chemistry, and before we start I just want to remind you that this is not financial advice and I'm just sharing my opinion as I would share it with my friends. I created a spreadsheet with all information about these companies, and I have to warn you that it's only about the most advanced drug candidates for each company, because I believe if we're going to talk about each drug candidate it will take too much time, and I prefer to focus on the most advanced drug candidates and discuss them in more details. And you can find link to this spreadsheet in the description, and then you can just study it on your own pace, and you can also click on the links that are in the comments for many cells that basically contain reference materials for information provided in the table. So now let's open spreadsheet and look at the information available there. So I just want to start with when each company was founded and by whom. So I only mention key personalities that are founders of this company, because each company has multiple founders, but we only focus on the main characters. As you may know, that CRISPR Therapeutics is the first CRISPR company that was founded in 2017 by Emmanuelle Charpentier, and for her work on CRISPR, she was awarded Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2020. So the next company is Editas Medicine, that was founded also in 2013 by Feng Zhang and David Liu. And Feng Zhang is famous as the first person to actually apply CRISPR in human cells. And David Liu, he is famous for his base editors. So he basically invented this methodology. And that methodology led to foundation of Beam Therapeutics. So the next company is Intellia Therapeutics, and was founded next year in 2014 by Jennifer Doudna, who actually shared this Nobel Prize with Emmanuelle Charpentier in 2020. And the last company, basically the youngest from all, Beam Therapeutics, founded by the same people, Feng Zhang and David Liu, as Editas Medicine. So, and as I mentioned before, David Liu, he basically key figure for Beam Therapeutics because he invented base editors. I find it useful to compare companies by the number of employees, because I believe it provides additional data points compared to, just looking at pipeline and financials. And CRISPR Therapeutics is the biggest of them all. And if you compare it to Editas, it basically has 2 times as many employees. And for me, it's a red flag for Editas, because they're growing very slow compared to CRISPR Therapeutics. Then if you compare it with Intellia, it seems to be, it's kind of okay. It's definitely doing better than Editas in terms of growth. And then if you look at the Beam Therapeutics, which is the youngest company from them all, you can see that in spite of being the youngest, it has almost identical, not exactly identical, but close to a number of employees in Editas. And for me, it seems to be that from this metric, just something wrong with Editas. All other companies are doing pretty well. If you're looking at the market cap, you can see that CRISPR Therapeutics is the biggest company from them all, and Editas basically 4 times smaller than CRISPR. And Intellia and Beam, they're sitting at around 4.5 billion. So they're approximately 2 times smaller than CRISPR Therapeutics. Now let's have a look at the share price for each company. And while share price on its own doesn't tell much, when we compare it to 52-week high and 52-week low, you can estimate where the share price is going and how fast company is growing. So for CRISPR Therapeutics, you can see that current price is $107 and 52-week high $220, and it's down 51%. So it's trading at 51% discount from 52-week high. And if you compare it to 52-week low, which is $53 almost, it's actually 103% up. So similar story for Editas, that it's down significantly. It's actually down 66%, Intellia down 26% from all-time high, Beam down 44%. So again, if you're looking at the discount rate, that Editas is basically the cheapest. So it's, again, as with employees, it's kind of something odd happening here. If you're looking at the fastest growing company on this list, Intellia is clearly a leader. It's up 400% from 52-week low. And the next is Beam Therapeutics, which is up 324%. The next is CRISPR Therapeutics with 104%. And the last, Editas. Again, Editas seems to be off and the least up company from all of them. But still, if you consider 45% to S&P 500, it's still decent return. I mean, way more than decent. The next metric that I would like to look at is amount of cash on hand for each company and compare it to annual spendings. And it gives you an idea on how long this company will be able to continue operation without the need of raising additional capital. For the amount of cash on hand, I'm taking current assets and I'm taking out all liabilities. And I'm not going to read all the basically numbers in this table, but what I want to focus on how long this company will be able to sustain operation at the current spending rate with the amount of cash that they have. So, and here CRISPR Therapeutics is clearly leader again. So you can see that they have cash enough to sustain operation at the current pace for 4 years. And then Intellia and Editas, they equally well funded as well with 2+ years of operation. But when we look at the Beam Therapeutics, it's kind of edgy. It's only less than a year if we take into account my metric, and it's kind of give you idea that most likely they will be raising capital this year or later next year to proceed with the operation. And you have to take into account that most likely spending for all of these companies will be increasing because they will be starting costly new clinical trials. And I expect this spending annually will only go up in next 5 to 10 years. And we have to take into account that they don't have any medicine to sell yet. And the only way to get cash is to raise capital or sell some rights to their drugs. Now we will have a look at the more interesting part of the comparison, when we're going to talk about pipelines and their most advanced drugs. So let's first have a look at the number of drugs in a pipeline for each of them. And here I'm talking about total number of drugs, including research stage, which is far away from market, and including clinical trials stage as well. So, and here it's like no surprise, all of them have 9 or 10, so it's pretty even, nothing to look here. Then we're looking at the IND enabling stage. So this means that they're about to submit these applications to proceed with clinical trials. And here CRISPR Therapeutics has 1, Editas has 1, Intellia 2, and Beam also 1. And for Beam, it's the most important one because they only have 1 in IND enabling stage and 0 in clinical trials. So, and if you transition to clinical trials, you can see that CRISPR, again, it's on top of the game. CRISPR Therapeutics has 4 drug candidates in clinical trials, and 3 of them against cancer, but more interesting for us is CTX001, which is against sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. So for Editas, they have 2 candidates in clinical trials, and we're going to talk about EDIT-101. Intellia has also 2, and we're going to focus on Intellia 2001. Here you can see information about each drug candidate and when clinical trial started and when I expect it to be on the market. So this is just my expectation, huge disclaimer here. It's not official, these dates is just my best guess. In order to understand total addressable market for each of these drugs, we have to have a look at the disease itself. So, and for CRISPR Therapeutics, CTX001 is targeted against sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. And total number of people that live in US and Europe, and I'm going to talk about US and Europe because this is primary market, because all of these drugs will be very expensive in the beginning, and I believe that this company will be primarily trying to focus on Europe and USA to register these drugs in these countries first. So, total number of people with sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia, 170,000 in these 2 regions. and 32,000 of them are actually targeted for this treatment because they have severe cases of beta thalassemia or sickle cell disease, and in the first place, this is who this drug designed for. Then we have to take into account that this is hereditary disease, and each year more and more people born with this disease. And sickle cell disease is more common in Black or African American people, as well as Hispanic American people. You can see that on every 365 births in Black or African American families, one child will have sickle cell disease. Now let's have a look at the competitors that already have approved drugs for sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia on the market, and there are quite a few. So let's have a look what kind of drugs we have on the market already. So I'm not going to read you names, but what's more important in my opinion, to look at the price. And price, as you can see, it starts at 20,000 and can go up to 1.8 million. When we look at the drugs in a price range of 20 to 100,000, they have to be administered on a regular basis, and you have to go back to a hospital every time when it's administered. And it's very unpleasant experience, and you have to continue doing it till the rest of your life. So, and when we compare to Bluebird Bio drug, which cost 1.8 million, and now you will probably understand why. It's one-off treatment. So it's a gene therapy, it's not CRISPR therapy. So, and here I just want to point out that there is a clear difference between gene therapy and CRISPR therapy. So while CRISPR is actually changing DNA, gene therapy only delivering functional gene to the cell without changing DNA. And I might do another video about explaining these details and why it's important, but for now you have to accept that CRISPR technology is the next step compared to gene therapy. There is additional information that you have to know about Bluebird Bio drug that is relevant to our case. So Germany recently said that this price is too high and Bluebird Bio withdraws a drug from the market in Germany. For me, this is clear indicator that if CRISPR Therapeutics want to avoid these troubles, they need to set this price a bit lower. And my estimate that probably the price will be at around 1 million. Probably a bit higher, but this is just my guess. For all these prices that are listed in this table, it's just my guess, and you have to take it as it is. And I believe that CRISPR Therapeutics will be really focused on delivering this drug to as many patients as possible in these first couple of years when it will be on the market. Because we have to take into account that all other CRISPR companies are working also on the sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia. And all four on this list, they will have these drugs eventually on the market because they basically applying same technology and will be treating this disease same way. So this is really strong competition. And I believe that CRISPR has to do a lot in this first couple of years. Now let's talk about drug candidate from Editas, Edit 101. And it's targeting disease which is called LCA type 10. So LCA itself can be caused by plenty of different mutations, and already at least 18 of them are known. But 15 of these cases of LCA are connected to this type 10 mutation. So, and Editas, they're trying to target this mutation first because this is the most common mutation in LCA. And this disease eventually causing blindness. According to Editas, 4,000 people have this disease in US and Europe. And also, each person born in every 260,000 will have this disease as well. So it's kind of rare disease, and compared to sickle cell disease, it's definitely less common, but it has to be addressed definitely. And also, what's so important for Editas in this case, that they don't have real competitors in this field, and they will be able to establish themselves as like leader in this technology that connected with gene disorders in ophthalmology. And talking about the competitors for Edit 101, actually there is one company that has drug against the same disease, but since it's targeting different type of LCA, so it's targeting different gene, and it's gene RPE65, and it's causing LCE type 2. And as you can see, it's priced at 450,000, and it's also gene therapy. So it's delivering healthy copy of gene that produce required protein. And it's logical to assume that price for Edit 101 will be similar if it will reach the market, and this is why I put my estimated price for this drug at 0.1 million. Now let's move on to Intellia Therapeutics and their drug candidate NTLA 2001. It was designed to treat ATTR, and as you can see, this disease is quite common. It has two main types: hereditary, which is inherited from one generation to another, and wild. Basically, wild type is just something that happens to old people when they age. You can see that in terms of frequency, ATTR is least frequent from all discussed diseases today, and it's appear only 3 cases per 10 millions of born people. While this disease is not as common in terms of hereditary type, but wild type is pretty common, and up to 500,000 of people have this disease right now. I forgot to mention that ATTR caused by abnormal proteins that are undigestible in the body, and they start to accumulate in different parts of the body and causing a lot of health issues depending on where it's actually accumulated. And average lifespan after diagnosis is 2 and up to 15 years. So it's really shortening life expectancy by a lot. If we're talking about competition for NTLA 2001, there are 2 drugs already registered on the market that targeting this ATTR disease. And it's interesting to see what kind of price manufacturers for these drugs have, because I believe CRISPR will be more beneficial to patients, but still it's good for price estimation of CRISPR drug. And it starts at 420,000 and can go up to 680,000. And I assume, based on this price, it's safe to say that Intellia will probably put somewhere in 2 million range for the CRISPR drug. But maybe this price will be even higher, because if you take into account amount of money you have to spend every year for these competitor treatments, it's kind of easy to justify 3 million or maybe even more. And I feel like this could be the most expensive drug on the market when it will be actually registered. If Intellia Therapeutics gets FDA approval for NTLA 2001, they will be enjoying exclusive rights for CRISPR treatment for ATTR disease. And this competition that's already present on the market, it's not real competition, because you have to take these drugs till the rest of your life, while Intellia drug will be one-off treatment. Also, I need to mention, since NTLA 2001 appears in older people and population is rapidly aging, they will have more and more patients every year. Now we finally arrived to Beam Therapeutics, and their most advanced drug candidate also targeted sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia, but since it's not even in clinical trials, they will be lagging competition by quite a bit, at least 3 or maybe even 4 years compared to CRISPR Therapeutics. And even though their technology may be better, but they will be in the situation where they have to compete with already established medicine, and it can be hard. This is why I put price tag of 500,000 for Beam Therapeutics drug candidate, because they have to compete with all the rest of CRISPR companies that are developing same treatments. But I have to tell that this process of competition will be very beneficial for patients, because you imagine that one company dictating the price, it's much worse for patients compared to 4 companies competing on the market and actually driving the price down. Now, as we discussed each company and their leading drug candidate and price for competitors, you can estimate what kind of revenue company will be able to generate. I'm not going to calculate it in my case, because I still believe that it's too many variables and you don't know how many patients per year company will be able to treat, and then how soon next company with the same drug arrive to the market. So it's still hard to exactly predict, but you can get the idea of how pricey these drugs are and how many patients need this treatment. Now let's talk about partnerships. And partnerships, in my opinion, are very important for young companies like CRISPR companies, because big companies like, let's say, CRISPR Therapeutics is partnered with Vertex, Vertex would be able to leverage its network that is already built up around the world and present in different regions. And using this network, Vertex will be positioned better to deliver new drug to a market, compared to some small company that has to establish itself for the first time. So here I listed all major partners for each company, and you can see that in CRISPR case, the most known companies is Vertex, who is actually helping develop CTX001, and Bayer. For Editas Medicine, partnership picture doesn't look as bright as for CRISPR Therapeutics, because last year Allergan, one of main partners who is actually helped to develop EDIT-101, just walked away from this deal, and now they left with the rest of their partnerships. But still, it's very important, to have partner in the first drug that you're going to deliver to the market, because it will speed up the process. And now they kind of on their own with EDIT-101. So it's not good in my opinion. But on the bright side, of course, they don't have to share their profits with anybody else. Intellia also has strong partnerships, and specifically with Novartis and Regeneron. These two are very big companies, especially Novartis, it's just a giant. So I'm not worried about Intellia from this standpoint. And now let's talk about Beam. Here I was honestly surprised to see that I didn't find any mentioning of partners on their website or on their pipeline, in their presentation, in their news. Nowhere any partners to be found. And if I missed it somehow, let me know in the comments, because I would like to know, since I'm invested in Beam as well. And I was honestly kind of caught by surprise that how can you not have partners? And I know that it's youngest company of them all, but I believe that CRISPR and Intellia, as far as I remember, already had partners at this stage back in their time. So for me, this is something negative about Beam that you have to take into consideration. And I believe they will announce some partnerships later on, but for now, it's not clear. Overall, CRISPR Therapeutics and Intellia looks much stronger compared to Editas and Beam without any partners definitely the weakest one according to these criteria. Now let's have a look what kind of catalyst upcoming during this year for CRISPR companies. In the last quarter of 2021, CRISPR Therapeutics is planning to announce initial clinical data about their oncology pipeline that include 3 drugs right now. And I don't expect this to move share price significantly, because this will be initial clinical data, and I guess they will be primarily focused on the safety of these drugs. For Editas Medicine, it's way more interesting, because they will be releasing initial clinical data about EDIT-101, the leading drug. And if this data is good, share price can go up to all-time high, up to, I don't know, $80 or $90 that it used to be, because they don't have any partners, so they don't have to, share these profits with anybody, and they will be uniquely poised in this ophthalmology. But if the data is bad, share price can go down up to, I don't know, probably this $20-$25 range, and I'm not going to be surprised by this movement. So it will be really interesting to see what kind of data they will be able to release later this year, and I will pay close attention to it. For Intellia Therapeutics, it's similar story to Editas Medicine, because they will be releasing data about NTLA 2001, their leading drug candidate, and see if it's effective in humans or not. And if it's effective, I'm not sure if share price will go up dramatically, because I feel like it's already priced in for a good result. It definitely will go up, probably not as high as for Editas, but if it will be a bad news, I believe that share price can go down a lot, because share price is already high relatively to other companies in terms of what they have in the pipeline and what they're up to. For Beam Therapeutics, it's not as interesting, because they will only submit their documents to start clinical trials at the end of this year, and maybe they will be able to start clinical trials at the end of the year, or maybe they will start at next year. And I'm not sure if share price will react to this news or not. Probably yes, because this will be a first time when base editor company start clinical trials. Now, as we discussed all this information, I would like to give you my opinion on these companies. And I believe that in terms of risk, the less risky is CRISPR Therapeutics, because it's already shown that this drug is effective, and after 1.5 years or almost 2 years, patient who was treated with CTX001 is feeling good, and it doesn't seem to have any side effects that are bothering this person. So I believe that they have really strong drug candidate that most likely will be a first CRISPR drug approved on the market. On the second place in terms of risk, I would put Intellia, because Intellia backed by strong partners like Novartis and Regeneron. And Regeneron is helping to deliver NTLA 2001 to the market. But Intellia yet to release any information on clinical data. and we are not sure yet if this treatment is working or not. So this is why I'm not as confident as in CRISPR Therapeutics. So, and on the third place, I feel like, in my opinion, they're equally risky. Beam Therapeutics and Editas. Beam Therapeutics is risky because it doesn't have any clinical trials yet, and it's not shown to work in humans as of right now. And Editas Medicine doesn't look good overall. As we mentioned today, that they have fewer staff compared to CRISPR Therapeutics. One of their major partners just walked away from this deal on developing Edit 101. So, and this is some red flags for me, that probably something fishy going on with Editas. Also, I didn't mention here, but they were changing CEO 2 times in the last 2 years, which is also not optimal. But on the bright side for Editas, it's easy to imagine that companies that worth just over 2 billion can 10x in a relatively short period of time, compared to companies that already worth 8 billion or 9 billion as CRISPR Therapeutics right now. So if you want to gain more money and take more risk, Editas may be a right company for you, but you have to take into consideration all mentioned facts before. I personally own all 4 companies in my portfolio, and I'm planning to keep adding to these positions in the future, because right now prices, in my opinion, are very attractive, and with CRISPR Therapeutics is almost inevitable, and I'm personally 95% confident that this drug will be on the market. I will be looking forward to add to my CRISPR Therapeutics position. And I hold all 4 companies because I prefer diversification compared to, just invest in a single company and then I will be losing sleep on every news that happened to this company and trying to figure out if it's a bad news or if it's a good news. So I just prefer, to have less gains, but to have good sleep during the night. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, as I'm planning to cover gene sequencing companies next, and I will keep you updated on CRISPR companies as well. So see you in the next one.